Welcome to Fix Ops Mastermind. I am Kyle Morissette, and today I am joined by Peter Penev, who is the parts manager at Crabtree Nissan. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey, how are you, Kyle?
Doing great, man. Thanks for joining us. Excited to have a parts person here joining our party. Let's get rolling. Tell me the journey that brought you into parts and kept you there for normally two or for nearly 2 decades already. How'd that come about?
Yeah. Well, first off, let me say it's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's an absolute pleasure to be recognized from the parts side of things. Um, I'll go into this. Basically, I began like a lot of parts guys. I started as a driver. My stepfather brought me into the business. He said I had computer skills. He said, you have a tenacity to learn stuff. You like messing with computers. Parts is where you want to be. It also helped a little bit that I was a car guy. He saw me tinker with my Sentra SCR back in the day and all these other cars that I had. So that helped a little bit too. It gave me that back end knowledge and just kind of the idea of what a car was. Um, so fast forward, I was in my 20s. I was a little cocky, and I want to share a little story that kind of at the time, I didn't really understand how it would guide my career. But now that I look back on it, I would say it was the catalyst for what shaped me into the manager I became, or the director I became, or the leader that I became for my team.
Sure.
So we were at the counter. I was, as I said, young, cocky. I felt I knew everything at the time. He came to me for a part, and if I remember the story the way it goes, is I said something just a little out of pocket, a little kind of along the lines of, waiter's gonna wait. I'm sure we've heard that term one too many times.
Yes.
And he had been in the industry for the better part of 30 years. He was a master tech, seasoned. He grabbed me by my collar and pulled me over the
Oh,
counter
wow.
at the time. And I'm a little guy. I'm 5'3". My stepdad was, 6'2", 200 something pounds. So that's not a difficult feat for him. Pulls me over the counter, kind of throws me on the shop floor, and just tears into me about accountability. These are the customers' cars. They come into this dealership trusting us. They leave here with this feeling that we've done right by them. We're taking ownership of their vehicle. They drive their kids in these cars. And at the time, I was young and I didn't think much of it. I was like, all right, no problem. I got back, I did my job, whatever, whatnot. Come a few years later, as I started growing into different roles and learning more things,
Mhm.
that's when it really started to click. That's when that story or that incident stuck with me, and I was like, wow, this is really it. A lot of times from parts, we tend to just get into that same cycle over and over again, not really thinking about the end result,
Right.
but more so, okay, let's get this estimate done, let's get it over to the advisor, and it's the same old song and
Sure.
dance. But once we break out of that, we come to find out there is a deeper meaning into all of this.
So he kind of showed you that you had ownership right there on the spot, and to
Absolutely.
take it seriously. And there's not enough people that do that, right? I think in all my years, it's been do it honestly, ethically, and morally, and try and take care of the customer. And transparency now has always been important, but I think it's becoming more and more important as we go. But that story of him saying these people put their families in the car, that's a conversation I
Yeah.
have with every brand new technician that walks in the door. And whether they're seasoned or they're fresh out of school or whatever it may be, is hey, every vehicle that you're working on, you need to be completely focused, completely dialed in to make sure that you go through all your checks and balances to make sure that the car leaves here right. Because again, it's exactly that. They're depending on us, and they're going to put their family in the car to go to soccer, to go to school, to go to whatever. Um, so,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's eye opening once you actually realize where it is. And I think from a part side, because sometimes you can be so distanced from the end result, it doesn't feel as real as it should, right? So, I
Absolutely.
think that's an awesome point for sure. What's one of the biggest misconceptions that people outside of the parts department have about the work itself and the influence you handle? I know that kind of goes from what we just said, but where do you see people not realize how much you bring to the table the most?
Kyle, I have to say I love that question. And because it's been addressed to me in multiple ways. I've had manufacturer representatives come to me, our farms,
Yeah,
on a few occasions. Parts managers in many cases are looked at stereotypically. We're looked at as, the bean counters, the guys that stick in the office and just we dive our heads into these reports and trying to maintain obsolescence, trying to maintain churn rates, fill rates, all of these KPIs that are really, in my opinion, and I'm probably going to get crucified by other parts managers for saying this, but in my opinion, all those KPIs are just surface deep. They don't really tell you the true efficiencies of your department.
sure,
They're numbers, but I mean, I could go into many other aspects which makes a parts department great.
sure.
So I've had through my career on multiple occasions, as I mentioned, one of our FOMs came to me, and it was, I think, our second meeting. And she says to me, she's like, you know, you've got personality. You're not like a lot of the other parts managers I've met. You don't beat me up on numbers. You don't beat me up on rebates. You don't come back at me with all of these rebuttals. You like to hear more of the human side of
Sure.
things and understand how it's going to correlate to your clientele. And that was one thing that really stuck with me. Another thing, and this was more on the negative side, we had, I'm going back probably one or two dealerships ago, I had an advisor who said to me, "You guys are only here because of us."
Oh man.
And yeah, and that kind of hits you a little bit because I always make myself visible in front of advisors, in front of sales, everywhere. I try to be everywhere because we really do have just as much of our foot in everything, just as much as service or sales or so on and so forth.
Sure.
So it kind of hit me a little bit that that was kind of the way we were viewed. So I, in a sense, almost wanted to change that.
Yeah.
But that's the common misconception. We're being counters, We're in those reports.
I think the best parts managers that I've worked with are the ones that are completely engaged in what's going on. They understand how many appointments we have today. They've either looked at the appointments or the used cars that are coming in so that they can game plan for it. And I've had a couple of parts managers that would look ahead and pre-order as they were going, which is risky, right? It's risky business. You could have
Yeah,
it
very
on the
much.
customer side, or if you're ordering parts for, I mean, generally for your own brand, it's fine, but an off brand vehicle, if you're buying them from an off brand option, now you have these parts sitting here for a car that ends up getting wholesaled. And now, all right, now I got to return it. Now I got to look for the return, make sure everything, like, there's so many moving pieces for just one part that, the most advanced parts
Absolutely.
people that I've had uh, have just really been dialed into how do I make sure that we're as efficient as we possibly can be, and service a lot of times will complain about sales, right? So sales has too many salespeople. How many managers are on the desk? How many, and you want us to run it this way or whatever it is. But let's look at a parts department. A parts department runs thinner than any other department out there in most cases, right? So you're going to have a leader, a couple of counter people that may work the back counter and the front counter. And then when the wholesale driver
Yep.
doesn't call in, one of you has to go on the road. There's no backup plan for where it is. So you're handling all this inventory, all these pieces of the puzzle, and having to source parts quickly and all these other things that there's multiples of those people outside of your department. And then to
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
something like
very
that,
much so.
to hear something like, oh, well, you're only here because of us. Well, the reality is that all of us are only here for one thing, and that's the customer. So we're all here for one thing. If we didn't have that customer, then what are we doing? So
Absolutely.
my little
Absolutely.
soapbox thing for a minute.
And
So I apologize. That those kind of thoughts really irritate me because that's not what we're here for. We're here to serve, and we're here to serve together. I mean, clearly at the point where where in this whole scheme of things, right? So you started younger and made the
Yeah.
mistake and got dragged over a counter, and then figured out what was going on. But when did you realize that you didn't have a seat or felt like you don't have a seat at the table? And so where was that point? And from there, where did it? How did it shift? What sparked the shift?
Let's see. So that's a toughie. I would have to say the turning point for me was before our current buy sell. So I've been at this location for about the better part of 10 years.
Okay.
And prior to this, we were a different auto group. We went through a buy sell, which I successfully survived. Yay. But prior, prior to the buy sell, I was in a parts director role where I was overseeing two
Okay.
rooftops. I had much more visibility to a lot of things and really started to dig in on the back end and expense accounting aspects of parts. And I realized at that point, you know, we're not that we're not getting the support that we need, but we're often overlooked. There's often this lack of inclusion for parts. I'm gonna make kind of a risque statement by saying this, but I do know that in most cases, not all, but in most cases, your fixed operations directors come from a service
Sure.
background. Your general managers come from a sales
Yeah.
background. I feel that a parts manager can scale that just as well in some cases because they don't have that front facing or consistently front facing customer interaction.
Sure.
They can make many decisions that can be can be somewhat more tangible because of the fact that they look at things more logically and less emotionally
Mhm.
in many aspects. But that was the first time when I realized parts really needed a seat at the table. And that's when I realized that we haven't been looked at the way we should have been looked at from an expense structure,
Sure.
from a support structure. As you mentioned earlier, there are parts departments that are run thin. Now, support can be broken down into many different categories. It
Mhm.
can be, competitive pay, which will build the morale of the parts department, make
Sure.
these guys want to work.
Mhm.
It can be staffing, give us an extra guy, show that the efficiency is there once you add people to it. It can be give us the software that we need. But just that presence to be there says a lot. And honestly, I commend the leaders that actually take the time to step into a parts department and chat with the parts manager just as often as they do a service manager or a sales manager.
Yeah.
Go in, find out. Because a lot of times, and I just from my personal experience, I've seen the fixed ops directors and the general managers get tossed into a NADA uh, class about parts or a manufacturer training about parts. But again, that's only surface deep, as I mentioned earlier. Then you're just looking at the surface deep KPIs.
Sure.
You're not looking at the full picture of what parts is. It's a cash department. It's a department that, we don't have floor plan vehicles.
Right.
We don't have unbooked labor. The dealer principal cuts a check at the end of every month when that statement comes in, the ACH comes out.
Yep.
So it's cash on our shelves.
Mhm.
And we're responsible of making that cash turn, building a profit for it.
Yeah.
If the dealership goes under, last point here is if the dealership goes under, that all that stuff is paid for.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Great point.
Quick break in the action. Let's talk parts. Yeah, that corner of the dealership most people don't look at until there's a fire. Parts Edge helps you clean up that mess. Smarter inventory, better margins, and no more guessing games. It's like giving your parts manager a crystal ball, except this one actually works. Spiffy. You can manage your mobile appointments, optimize your service routes, track inventory, and process payments, all with Spiffy, and you can learn more at spiffy.com. You ever wish you could inspect every car like a tech with x ray vision? UVI is like an MRI for your car. UVI doesn't miss a thing. Scans the tires, the underbody, body panels, and wheels for scuffs in seconds, giving your team instant, actionable intel without slowing down the lane. That's not the future. That's UVI, and it's live in stores today.
So let me ask you, and not to put you completely on the spot, but knowing that you want it, that you want and deserve, I agree that you should have a seat at the table. How do you find yourself making sure that you're included on strategic decisions and making sure that your voice is heard?
I knew this question was coming up. I just kind of set myself up for it, didn't I?
A little bit.
Uh,
And honestly, if it's a tough spot for you,
I
that's
think
the best thing we want to do. But I guess we could say, let me rephrase, because I don't want it to always be, like on that personal side. I want it to
uh-huh.
be the inclusion, like Fix Ops Mastermind, the podcast, and our the whole program is inclusion,
Hmm.
right? We are about being able to say
Yeah,
what we want to say in the right ways, working together, agreeing to disagree, but
absolutely.
coming up with a solution that works. So let me say this: if you were a parts manager that felt like you were left out in everything and in any dealership in the world, what do you think you can do to get yourself at the table in these strategic decisions that are essentially going to affect you, right? So if they're making a marketing decision where they're going to, run a deal to sell more used cars, that's going to affect your department,
Hmm.
right? You have to get those used cars ready, right?
Absolutely.
On the other end, if the service manager is deciding to make a change or run a coupon or something to that extent and wants you to have a part in said discount, you should have a say in that conversation. So if you were telling somebody that was coming in as a new parts manager, just got promoted, how do you encourage them to find that seed of inclusion?
There's a saying that I read a long time ago, and I've kind of kept it close to me. Your parts department can be your biggest enabler or your biggest bottleneck for service growth,
Sure,
for fixed ops growth in general.
absolutely,
Because at the end of the day, parts is a funnel. Depending on which direction you put it, work passes through. It's either going to get bottlenecked or it's either just going to keep everything flowing smoothly.
sure,
Um, with that, I'd like to touch on a LinkedIn post I made
sure.
about 5-minute turnaround times. We hold an average 5-minute turnaround time or less. At one point, we were 3 minutes in average for, I think it was July of this year.
Wow,
Turnaround times for accurate quotes through parts. Now, what does that do? At the end of the day, that gives your advisor confidence to upsell. I mean, let's be realistic here. We need to get included because if we're not, your advisors don't have confidence in my parts department if I can't get you the quotes in time. Those customers are sitting in your waiting room. Those customers, if they're in for a 45-minute an hour oil change and they're sitting in your waiting room, by the half-hour mark, 40-minute mark, they're clock watching. They don't want to hear about an upsell. They don't want to hear about what's wrong with their car. They want to get going. So 5 minutes. Those quotes got to be to you guys within 5 minutes or less. Accurate, ETA accurate. We're not talking about, oh, it's out of stock. We'll figure it out. We don't know. Check the ETAs.
Right.
Dump them into your locators. Find out what they are. Now, that's just an average. I know some vehicles, and this is another one I'm going to get crucified for by a lot of parts people because they'll say it's impossible. You can't do every car in 5 minutes or less. But look at the keyword here, average. You're going to have cars that are going to take longer.
Sure,
That's nature of the beast. You have the used cars, which you have to source aftermarket.
absolutely.
You have the cars which come to you here in the Northeast. We have cars that are riddled with
Oh
rust.
yeah,
You want to do a simple job,
forget.
yeah, you're going to have to nuts, bolts. You have to deal with the consequentials. So we have to go through this quote
Sure,
accurately. At the end of the day, your advisors want to feel confident selling those parts,
right.
and they need to get there fast. Now, That also caveats to the flag hours for the technician.
Sure.
If we get those quotes done quickly, then what ends up happening? That technician knows, okay, I got to wait for these parts. Let me pull the car out. Let me get the next one.
Yep.
Or, hey, these parts are going to be here in 20 minutes, an hour. The advisor already sold it. Let me start taking it apart and be ready for this.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that, that one process is solely a reason why we need to be included in these conversations. We need the inclusion, and we need to have that seat on the table. Just that one process I implemented opened up all of this for me to see how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. To and for me, uh, I would say I'm guilty of it more than I'd like to be. But if I'm having a full fixed operations meeting, my parts personnel need to be there, not just the manager. I want the counter people here. I want to have a conversation so that everybody's on the same page.
I love
And
that. I love that.
to say a 3 to 5 minute time, you're absolutely right. If a car is coming in and it's here for just routine maintenance and we quoted them 90 minutes, we got to be back in front of them in 20 to 25 minutes. Otherwise, the chances of the advisor being able to get a yes reduces drastically. I mean, that's just factual. With plenty of data behind it to get it there. But so I guess that would be one of the ways that you've been proactive on creating opportunities to contribute versus being invited. Are there any other things that you've done that have really changed the game for your teams?
I make myself visible.
I think that's
I
huge.
make myself visible everywhere. I'm in sales. Today I was in a I signed myself up for failure, let's put it like that. But I was in the sales meeting. As I said, I'm a car guy,
Sure.
so sometimes I pop into sales. They need help with accessories. Not everybody knows all the accessories available, what's available here, what's not available, pricing, this, that.
Hmm.
So I was in the sales meeting. Our GSM was doing a quick walk around for a vehicle. It was a Frontier, and he was, training the salespeople. These are touch points. This, that. Look at this. Look at the engine. It's a V6. So all this other stuff, and there were great touch points. And at the end of it, he ended his presentation with, "Okay, next week we're gonna have a competition. Uh, you know, whoever whoever has the best presentation, lunch on me." And two guys raised their hand. They were like, "Oh, I'll do it," and then another salesperson, "I'll do it." And the GSM looks at me, and I feel like we locked eyes for that second, like he expected me to kind of bite, and I did. I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So next week I have to do a sales walk around on an Ultima, which but it's that visibility. It's being a part of the teams. Every other Friday we have a fixed ops meeting with our techs, service manager, and I grab myself and my assistant manager, who we're the ones that come in early,
Sure.
and we're the ones out there in the shop. We want to know about how are the video MPIs doing. What is our dollars per row? What are we doing there? The tangible, the surface level KPIs, as I said before, but these are also tangible
Yeah.
KPIs. We get to see how the technicians feel about them. We get to see their feedback. And honestly, I feel the way the over the past 10 years at my current location, the type of repertoire that we've built with our technicians is bar none. They absolutely love us. They come into our parts department. They know the parts are there.
Mhm.
We've reduced the amount of time that they sit around waiting for parts. We've just put a lot of little processes in place that help their efficiency. So you don't have that technician sitting there, "Hey, how was your weekend?
Right.
What'd you do with the kids?" That's I love to socialize, but I feel sometimes when they're doing it and they're in the middle of a job waiting for parts, that's not
That's
the
not the
efficient way to
time.
do it.
Yeah.
That's not the right way to do it.
Agreed. Agreed. And you know, uh, unfortunately, in a lot of parts departments, that's the hiding space, right? Because there's not a lot of people back there that are paying attention to what's going on up front. It's a place that you can
Yes.
go disappear and the counter folks, a lot of times they're willing to have a conversation because, hey, somebody's been here
Oh yeah.
talking to us. So next thing you know, you've lost 25 minutes, and somebody out there is taking heat, and potentially you're the one going out there. I love the
Yeah.
fact that you've said so many times in this conversation that you want to be visible, because that is a key, right? Is being visible, being
Absolutely.
accountable, being ready to be in a sales meeting, to accept something that's well outside of your comfort zone, and then
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're going to win lunch. It's there's no question. I believe in you already. So so
Well, thanks for that vote of confidence.
and I honestly, I would say, FaceTime me when you're doing it because I mean, I'm excited for you. I think you're going to win and win going away.
All right, we all know about warranty nightmares. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated. If your warranty process still involves sticky notes, tribal knowledge, and late night claims rejections, you're leaving money on the table. Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated brings clarity, compliance, and cash flow to your warranty game. They speak fluent OEM, and they've got your back. Hey, I want to encourage you to take a visit over to our partner, Target Automotive, at target.com. That is great until you're drowning in it. Target turns that chaos into clarity with dashboards that actually make sense. Fixed ops leaders finally get what they need: real time, drill down insights without the spreadsheet migraines. It's not just business intelligence, it's Target.
For sure. So, um,
I don't think sales would like it if I show their salespeople how to sell cars.
honestly, though, if everybody that's there in that scenario, if you were to win, right, everybody that's there, if they each pick up one thing to do differently that gives the customer a better show, and helps them move another unit, nothing to be upset about, right? That's what we're here for. We're all supposed to be
Absolutely.
doing this together
We're here to learn.
for the common goal of helping a customer. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
one thing I would uh, I have this question written, but now I kind of want to change the way that I'm writing it because of one of the things that you said.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about working together, which clearly you're very
Yeah.
good at. Let me ask you, from your point of view, if you were to be a fixed ops director responsible for the whole piece, um, what do you think the proper partnership between parts, service, the personnel, and the leadership? What does it look like in your department if you're the fixed ops director? What do those pieces look like to you? How do you get that cohesiveness?
Um, I have a feeling I'm going to get really, really hated for saying this. I want the parts manager and the service manager to spend a week in each other's shoes. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I want that
Sure.
cross training, that understanding. I want the advisors to do the same thing with the counter personnel. Um, that builds understanding. That builds
Yeah.
cross training. That'll
Sure.
build a bridge of communication, which I personally feel will never be broken. And that would be part of even an onboarding process
Mhm.
if I was to be a fixed ops director.
Sure.
Because the two departments, though they are separate, and in all of my LinkedIn posts, I always put out how parts is its own entity. It needs its own visibility. It needs inclusion, but it
Yeah.
needs to be treated as a separate entity and not blended with service. And
Right.
for me screaming that off the rooftops, for me to say something that's so against my personal methodology
Mhm.
and my personal beliefs, I'm probably going to get hated, but it's the truth. We
Yeah.
don't know what really the other one is experiencing. I pull on that and I don't really put it out in my work history because it was a very short stint.
Mhm.
I was an advisor for about 6 months.
Okay. Okay.
So it's I understand very minimally the struggles that the advisors go through. I didn't make it as an advisor. The stress was too much.
Okay.
I had a difficult time with customers, and I'm not afraid to admit that because that's something I can build upon. Maybe it's because I was young. Maybe it's because I just didn't have the drive to do it at the time.
Sure.
But it's another stepping stone for me, and it really gave me a different angle of approach. When we understand that the advisors are faced with, you're spending an hour on a phone call with a third party warranty who then beats you up on pricing, and really you have to go back to your parts department with your tail between your legs and say, hey guys, this, that, and the other. I'll tell you candidly right now, the parts department's like, well, what the hell? This guy's weak. He couldn't sell it.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it.
Yeah,
There's a deeper element that we miss.
Yeah.
And that's one aspect. And that's why I feel that's the biggest step that I would do as a fixed ops director is switch roles for a week. Everyone, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week. You obviously don't want your team to be shorthanded
Sure.
with a new guy there.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't do it all at once. 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, and that's it. Show them what it's about.
I love it. I think that's absolutely a good plan, because you're right. We don't know what we don't know. So, if you're handling a role, and I came up, not from the part side, I came up from the service side, and I was an advisor, and tried to figure it out. And I was lucky that I had a few people that took me under their wing and guided me in the right direction. And so those things were great. I think that also helps you figure out how to put each of those employees on the right seat of the bus, right? So if you have an employee
Absolutely.
that you brought in for one role and you find that they are better aligned, or at least look to be better aligned at a different role, as leaders, it's our responsibility to say, hey, what do you think about this position? Because I see your strengths are here, and I want to really key in on your strengths so that we can continue to grow and mold you. And whether that's, hey, you're an advisor, but I think you're dialed in because of the way you do things, that you could work in parts. I mean,
I love
honestly,
that.
just
that resonates.
yeah, I mean, and having this conversation for you to tell me that I was wondering, or I was thinking of asking, well, have you ever tried, being an advisor or something to that role? Because you have every piece of that puzzle to be very successful as an advisor. So, I guess 1 years will do that to you, right? You learn different ways to go about things, and you learn your personality and how to, digest a certain situation. But do you think it may have been a training thing as well, where because of all that stress that came onto you, was it because you didn't have enough support to be able to get it done? And I'm not asking you to bury somebody, but for the advisors and parts people and salespeople that watch the show, I think it's important that if you are not feeling that you're getting that leadership, that you ask and force it, because you're owed that. You were brought on to
Yeah.
you were brought on to do a role. Um, if you're not getting the support for you to be able to actually do that role, and then are expected to be held accountable by that same person who asked you to do the role, who's failing at that point?
So you're absolutely correct. I think I wouldn't be throwing anyone under the bus because the store has since closed.
Okay.
But it was just myself and a handful of people at the time in a busy New York store, and it just wasn't, the support possibly wasn't there.
Okay.
But the cross training factor is big. I mean, I have to give a big shout out to my current team, and they know for what reason as well. Each and every one of them, before they came to parts,
Mm-hmm.
they had a different role in the dealership.
Awesome.
All three of them went to tech school,
Mm-hmm.
so they have that technical background. All three of them, at one point or another, were in the shop, and I want that to be one of the biggest things. If anything, for parts managers to take away from here, I want them to understand that sometimes your biggest assets are those lube techs who can't find a spot, who seem to be out of place,
Sure.
who sometimes have two left hands. These guys, they understand what the technicians are going through. They understand the suffers and the pain points of every technician.
Mhm.
So without them, a lot of these processes that I want to make happen, I feel the vision wouldn't be there. But because they've experienced it firsthand, that vision is there with them and it resonates with them. And they understand that there's a bigger picture. You know, these technicians, they're out there. Some of them don't even have AC shops, and they're sweating out there. They're trying to, they're trying to provide for their families. They're wrenching. They don't have proper communication from one end, from another end. And my vision wouldn't be able to be materialized without the effort of my team. And that's cross training. That's cross training, or at least interdepartmental understanding.
Sure.
And that's it at its basics, right then and there.
I love it. Yeah, because you found these people and put them in their seat, and they're successful.
Yeah,
So bravo for that. We need to be better at that, me included. I've tried, where I've had valets recently that were doing a great job as valets and really taking it to heart and making sure the lot was clean and cars were being parked and we didn't have all these bottlenecks and showing interest in the parts department, showing interest in the service department, and then saying, all right, well, how about we spend some time in either of those places and let's see if it's an actual fit for you. So talk to the parts manager and said, hey, I really think that this person would be able to, excel in parts, even if it was a driver to start and then learn the counter as we're going.
yeah,
And then, on the service side, I had an advisor that we moved up and we spent a lot of time with before we brought him up. And unfortunately, it didn't work because, it just wasn't him. Right. And,
yeah,
but,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
we tried it. And, a lot of places would say, hey, that didn't work. See you later. But forget the fact of where he was great. So I just said, hey, man, this is fine. We tried. We both agree. You're still an awesome employee. Let's do what you're great at. This is your seat on the bus for now, and we can always revisit it as we go. You're not stuck in any role,
Yeah,
and even when you get to a parts manager level or a service director level or a fixed ops director level, and you want the next thing, you can feel stuck, and it's your responsibility to ask for help. How do I get unstuck? And really your leaders, if they're seeing that you're stuck, it's kind of their responsibility to find out why and try and help. So it sounds like that's what you do all around the building and being visible and making sure that these people know that they have a voice and you're going to listen to it. So I applaud you for what you're doing in the store. I'm going to go back and say you're still going to win that walk around, and I can't wait to hear the results on that for sure. But
I'll have our social media girl. I'll have her take a video and I'll post it
I love
just
it.
to see what a parts guy can do.
Oh, I love it. Send it over and man, put it out on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure that as many people as we can get to it because I think that's awesome because it's another form of cross training. You're being cross trained on
Yeah,
what's happening on the sales end, and sales is being cross trained on what a parts manager can do beyond being the bean counter and the part
absolutely.
shuffler. So super cool. So tell me. Think of a situation or how would you handle a situation where um, service and parts or sales to come into parts looking for a set of floor mats or whatever where everything's just not going the right way and everybody's going in different directions one way or another that part's got to go over the counter in order to do so it's got to get billed and so how do you get everybody to realign and realize what the actual goal is to keep moving forward and finish the mission.
Very easy. You jump in, you guide, you lead. It's I can't get any more in depth than that. It's I can go into many times, and I'm sure you've seen it when parts and service start to blame each other
Right.
for things. I don't care for that. That doesn't do anything for me. Who
Right.
found out, or who did this wrong, or who did that wrong? I don't care about that. That's surface deep.
Right.
Fix the problem.
Yeah.
Fix the problem first. That customer needs to go. That customer needs to get on with their day, take the kids to soccer practice, go back to work, whatever the case is. Fix the problem first.
Yeah.
Then we can dig in and see what happened. Was it a process breakdown that we need to maybe revisit? Was it a miscommunication? Was it maybe, hey, a, a technical glitch? These things happen all the
Sure.
time. The
Yeah.
software just glitches, and
Yeah.
the line doesn't get sent to parts, but the technician put it in and it just didn't sync. It happens.
Yeah.
But you know what? The point is, the customer does not see us as a parts department or a service department or a sales department. They see us as one dealership. And to them, we are
Yeah.
the face of whoever our manufacturer is. So fix it. I
Right.
don't care who did it, who messed up. Fix it, get the customer on the way. We can revisit it later when our heads are cooled, when we've had some time to process it. Once the problem's all taken care of, then we can revisit it and figure out, okay, what really was the issue.
I love it. I absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's perfect. We ultimately the goal is one thing: get the problem taken care of, and help the customer. And yeah, no, I love that for sure. So we talk about, or I talk, or a lot of us talk about AI now. It's a new
Mhm.
piece of the puzzle, or not really new, but it's obviously gaining energy, and so if there was one thing that you could automate in the parts department process tomorrow, what do you think it would be?
That's a tough question. That's a very, very tough question. Um, AI is such a broad tool.
Sure.
So forgive me if I don't have a direct answer
No, it's okay.
for one particular thing that can be automated, but
Sure.
for me personally, I've used AI in my day to day. I've gone as far as trying to build out a parts matrix with AI
Love it.
just to play around with it.
Yeah, yeah.
AI automation is so vast, and if you educate yourself, there's so many tools out there. And if you educate yourself on the proper uses, if you don't rely on it for everything and educate yourself on the proper uses, the prompts, the integration between different AI software, the it's absolutely endless.
Yeah.
It can build out You can build out quotes with one-time use parts
Uh-huh.
for specific jobs that are already in some of the catalogs. So how to integrate that into the DMS so it automatically dumps, so you're not transposing part number by part number
Sure.
into a quote.
Mhm.
Things like that I can envision, because it'll at the end of the day it'll hold true to my 5-minute averages.
There you go.
It'll make things quicker, and it'll make things better for. And I'm sure I'll ask you, Kyle, who does it make things better for at the end?
The
The
customer.
customer.
The customer, absolutely.
Yeah,
And our people, right? So I mean, if
yeah.
it's such a stair stepped thing that the more that you can do to the more tools, not more in quantity, but the better quality
Hmm.
tools that you can put to your people to allow them to do their job more efficiently, with less mistakes, allows us more time to focus on the things that matter. And from a part standpoint, it's the relationship with the technicians. It's a relationship with the advisors. It's a relationship with the salespeople. It's the relationship with the counter. The customer that's coming to the counter. There's still those personal relationships have to happen, even though you're in the back portion of the dealership and often forgotten in your cave. How many people do you actually talk to per day, right? So whether it's a text message, an email, a phone call, or a technician coming in the door, I mean, you guys are talking to a lot of people. So
Yeah.
what if we could make it so that you could be at the ready that much quicker and take your, like you said, that five
Yeah.
minute average. You, without automation or with minimal automation, you got it down to 3 for a month. But imagine if you could get to 2.5, because it's already knowing what's going to be requested.
Yeah.
Those are
Absolutely.
cool things. So I like the fact that you've already used it, and the fact that you're thinking about it, because um, a lot like our technicians currently. I think that they're right now the ones that could benefit. I don't want to say the most, but there's an extreme benefit for our technicians, things that we can do to automate what they have to do from the
Yes.
admin side, um, and get them to do what
Yes.
they're great at, which is fixing the car. Right. So if we can automate a lot of these things, that time that they are not going to say wasting because it's not wasted time, but if we could find a way to automate or really streamline how they do an MPI in a video, how they get the information that they need from the car in order to make a proper diag, so that they can get to the part that matters, which is replacing the parts and getting the customer back in the car. Um, I think parts in that same sentence, we got to find out things that we can do there. There's a lot of focus on the advisors. There's a
Yeah.
ton of focus on the sales, on the sales team, and how do we get through the CRM, and how do we get that to talk to the customer and talk to the customer and talk to the customer. There's so many things that we can do internally to be able to communicate amongst ourselves to get a better result to the customer with those tools. So yeah, I look forward to talking more about this on the part side because I know
Yeah.
I know you have that tech side to you as well. So I'd like to continue throwing ideas back and forth of saying, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? At one point, I wanted to
Yeah.
hire a
Yeah.
robot I wanted to hire a robot to deliver parts, and put the order away to try and help people out. But
I saw a recent, I'm sorry to cut
no,
you
you're
off.
good.
I saw a recent advertisement by, I think it was, if I remember correctly, I forget the provider. I think it was Reynolds, and they have something along those lines.
Yeah,
And it's wonderful when you think about it. And I love the fact that you said technicians, because the minute you said technician, the first thing that popped into my head was, oh, my stepdad. When he was on the line, it was always, I gotta submit this case. I gotta do this. I have the
yeah,
triple C's. I gotta double check everything. I have to make sure everything's done. I
right.
gotta get on the phone with a tech line in our case, and I'm gonna sit on the phone for an hour.
Yep,
If there was a way to automate that, where you're dumping your three C's, and then the AI takes the rest of the way over with the manufacturer
yeah,
and gets all the documents over to them, that frees up so much time for the technician not to wait on hold, not to have
right,
to accumulate all this extra stuff.
right,
And it's just, that's when we touch back to the fact of unbooked labor hours. That frees them up to get to another car, to do another job, to make that lift profitable.
right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So let me ask you. I know who my guy is, that has been like my mentor and my sensei. I call him, and somebody that's become a family member to me, that I can call for anything. So in your career, I mean, I think you've already told me, but just in case there's somebody else, or if you want to, hone in a little bit more, who's the most influential mentor or leader that you've had in your career?
So in my career, we'll keep family out of
Okay.
this, but let's see. I've had three or four guys that really always guided me, and whenever I had any issues, they were always my senior. They always had that much more experience in the field than I did.
Mhm.
But three or four guys. One of them is my former managing director. His name is Greg. Amazing guy. Amazing guy. Just always understood that he's the one that actually put me in the management seat and helped groom me up to the director role and everything
That's
else.
awesome.
Uh, he taught me that once I become a leader, a supervisor, once I take on the role, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be spending time more as a therapist, as a shoulder for people to kind of lean towards,
Mhm.
rather than a manager.
Yeah,
And that comes with morale. It's more deeply entrenched with the fact of, you have to listen to your people.
sure.
You can't always be buried in the reports. You have to listen to your people, and you have to learn the proper way to steer them back, get them focused, and get them back to work. And that's, a lot of times that sounds very rough. Oh, well, what if they had this and this going on during the weekend? You're pushing them back to work. It's not that at all. You also have to be there to ask the questions. Hey, how's your kid's game this weekend?
Yep.
You have to show you're there, because at the end of the day, and now I'm going to push that towards my current fixed ops director, believe it or not, Justin Raffone, an amazing guy, family guy. And it's one of the key things that, you know, he's told me and our dealer principal has told me is, it was a saying, and I'm trying to remember it right now. It's an amazing saying. Numbers don't lie, only people do. But if you don't know your people, your numbers don't mean as much.
Right. That's
And it's
awesome.
just, it literally hits the nail on the head with everything we do on our day to day.
Yeah.
And Justin has given me this flexibility to grow my department, to kind of be independent of everything else going on, and show him and earn his trust to show him that, hey, we can take this department to the next level. We can really push this to be one of the best departments, and I feel one of the best departments in our dealer group as far as parts departments goes.
That's awesome.
And that's not talking about gross profit. That's not talking about numbers. That's talking about the efficiency, the people, and the way we get our job done. Um, Another person that comes to mind, and these are all mentors. They've all guided me in one way, shape, or form.
Sure.
One of the biggest people for processes is another former parts manager of mine, Matt Bussolari. He was the one that really drilled in process. He drilled in how important processes are, and if you don't follow them, anything can go awry. You build a process. If it's not followed, you can always revert back to that process, see where it fell apart, fine tune it. If someone makes a mistake, you can go to the process, see who made the mistake, how they made the mistake, and correct them there, because obviously that's where they're having the issue with process,
Sure.
or that particular process. So he's the one that helped hone me into that process, that mindset of building out processes, being aware of what's going on, and in a sense, that's pretty much it. In a sense, just being aware
Yeah. I love
and accountable.
it. I love it, man. That's awesome. One thing I could say is it's and I love the fact that it was multiple, right? Because this past year has been a whirlwind for me from the dealership side, but um, learning to build a network on LinkedIn and connecting with so many different great people that I've been missing for a long time. Dave Foy, who obviously created Fixed Ops Mastermind, and for some odd reason decided that he wanted to allow me to do this podcast, has been an awesome mentor and leader in that aspect, right? Of showing me the things that he's done, and how it's turned everything for him to a positive. And you look at these things 20 plus years later, and you're like, holy cow, this is he is. I mean, he's a great mentor and a teammate and a partner, and somebody that I consider a very close friend, although we're 1,000 miles apart most of the time. I talk to him not quite as much as my wife, but it might be getting close depending on the day. So I love the fact that you said it's multiple people, because you're right. I could go from the beginning of my career, and there was somebody that got me into the business. And yes, he was a mentor in one way, shape, or form. So I love the fact, and you have these people that you can continually go back to and say, "Hey, I need help on this,"
Yeah.
or "What do you think about this?" And I think that's awesome. So um,
Yeah.
let me kind of end with this one, which is, if the parts department had a slogan other than bean counter or "you're only here because," I'm kidding. But if it had a slogan, what do you think the best slogan for a parts department should be?
Oh man, a slogan?
Or something you can
Uh,
hold your hat on, right? So, you know, without
I mean,
arguing
I
with
got a
the car.
bad sense of humor. I would probably say something like the parts department, maybe we'll get it right.
There you go. Okay, that works.
But it's satire. It's kind of that's my sense of humor. It's, let's be honest, we're in automotive.
Yeah,
We tend to have a very morbid sense of humor at times, a very gritty sense of humor.
absolutely.
But that's it. I like to pull on the fact of the stereotype that we've kind of brought upon
Yeah,
ourselves, but from a comical
yeah,
standpoint,
hopefully.
whereas, yeah, maybe we'll get it right, but at the same time, when we do, we can make the whole thing churn properly.
Yeah, yeah. I believe you're only as good as the person at the helm that's going to pull the parts that go in the car, right? So we need to
Yep.
you need the advisor to start it right by giving us the right concern from the customer and asking the right questions. You need the technician to dial in and making sure that the technician is correct on whatever they're coming up with and sending the right information to the parts department. Now you need the parts department to have the wherewithal of saying,
Yep.
hey, for this specific job, not only are you going to need what you're asking for, but you're going to need X, Y, and Z to go along with it. Because if you don't have these things and they're not quoted, now you're either writing them off the policy or, well, I mean, you're reducing the price of the job. A great parts person knows you're going to need those nuts and bolts potentially because they're frozen because it's the Northeast and we're gonna have to torch them.
Oh yeah.
And then right back to the advisor being able to close the deal, right? So
Absolutely.
you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
one team, one goal, and it's clear that you and your team have that mindset. So, man, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm so glad that we got to have it, and I'm looking forward to our audience being
Likewise.
able to see you and the well-deserved seat that parts folks need at the table and absolutely deserve. So continue going that way and keep putting those posts out there because really that's what got me. That's what got me with you. I saw a post and I said, "My gosh, you need to be at the table because you're showing your voice and man, you backed every piece up. The things that you're doing in your store, I think." Everybody should be trying to do because the effort that you put in absolutely makes your team better. I really appreciate you being on the show and look forward to hopefully doing this a little later on down the road and staying in contact with you for sure. So thanks again for being here and hopefully we'll be talking very soon.
Thank you, Kyle. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the platform.
Absolutely.